There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 22, Correctional Services Appropriation Bill.
To introduce the budget, I welcome to the podium the Honourable the Minister of Correctional Services.
Geachte voorsitter, kan jy my hoor? Is hy aan? Goed. I want to start to say this is maybe a maiden speech as minister, but I can assure you it's not a maiden speech as member of parliament. So, thank you for that. Geachte huisvoorsitter, Deputy Minister for Correctional Services, members of the Portfolio Committee, honourable members, National Commissioner of Department of Correctional Services, Inspecting Judge Justice Edwin Cameron, members of the National Council for Correctional Services, members of the Parole Board, ladies and gentlemen, we are in an exciting new times with an abundance of possibilities but also complexities and challenges. The success of the new administration is dependent on our commitment. We have been afforded the opportunity to bring about real change to the lives of ordinary South Africans. We have been afforded the opportunity to restore and build, to fix what is broken, and to render hope for a safe, peaceful, and prosperous future. The people of South Africa want hope from our department, and they want to see it, because they are in a real situation where they want hope for the future. On Thursday, the 18th of July, the world will commemorate Nelson Mandela International Day. President Mandela said, and I quote, "Crime must be brought under control. Freedom without civility, freedom without the ability to live in peace is not true freedom at all." Alle gemeenskappe in Suid-Afrika kry tans swaar weens buitensporige hoë geweldsmisdaad. Ons howe is onderbefonds, onderbeman en ons tronke is oorvol. Misdaad is buite beheer en die mees weerloses in ons samelewing, die vroue en die kinders, ly die meeste as gevolg van 'n gebrek aan effektiewe beskerming en bekamping van geslagsgeweld. The Department of Correctional Services is paramount in our fight against crime and realizing a South Africa of peace and prosperity for all. The department has the important task to safeguard communities against convicted criminals, whilst providing rehabilitation of offenders in order to ensure safe reintegration into society. Our country is ushering in the 7th administration through a government of national unity. As the 2020-25 strategic plan period comes to an end, it is imperative to realize initiatives aimed at improving the lives of our people. DCS must play a leading role. To achieve this, we need strategic investments, innovative programs, and a commitment to justice and humanity. During the current financial year, our main task is to build on interventions of making correctional facilities safe and secure. We need to identify and acknowledge the challenges and problems facing correctional services. We need to prioritize addressing the areas of inefficiency in the department and root out corruption, ill discipline, and restore effective service delivery to create a system that not only corrects but heals, educates, reintegrates, and contributes to the eradication of crime. These challenges include overcrowding, dilapidated facilities, even increasing remand detainees, deteriorating infrastructure, staff shortages, crime syndicates, and gangs operating in our facilities, and new forms of crime patterns challenging our rehabilitation programs. The total budget allocation for the department over the 25 MTEF period amounts to 87.1 billion. The department's expenditure is expected to increase at an average annual rate of 4.5%, from 26.6 billion in 23-24 to 30.3 billion in 26-27. South Africa is experiencing insufficient economic growth, a budget deficit, and an unsustainable government debt burden. This necessitated budget cuts, which includes the DCS baseline being cut by 2.525 billion rand. The impact of these cuts is severe. The provision of security equipment is compromised. Capital investment in skills developments were cut. The budget for nutritional services had to be cut. Capital works projects will be on hold, and the monitoring of parolees could be negatively impacted. We will and have to do more with less. This will require innovation, discipline, and commitment. Die behoeftes is baie, maar die begroting onvoldoende. Dit is egter nie onmoontlik om onder hierdie omstandighede en realiteite welverbetering en uitnemendheid teweeg te bring nie. Agbare voorsitter, oom Pieter sal nie alleen sukses kan bereik nie. Ons sal moet saamwerk. And I look forward to working with the Deputy Minister, the National Commissioner, his executive, and each and every DCS official in ensuring quality services delivered and a safe South Africa. Two of the priorities that will receive urgent attention are effective contract management and the reduction of outsourcing. We must ensure value for money. It is also important to build a capable workforce and to ensure that the skills and expertise of our officials are utilized rather than outsourcing tasks and services. Ons moet ook daarop fokus om die fasiliteite en infrastruktuur wat ons het, effektief binne die beperkte begroting in stand te hou. Heinous crimes committed by a minority of parolees does affect our core businesses as it hampers the reintegration of former inmates into society. The impact on victims, our communities, families and individuals within the system is profound. It is imperative that we address these issues with urgency. This brings us to the emotive issue of parole. It is a subject that has generated a lot of interest and mixed reactions from the public. Parole is a mechanism that allows for the conditional release of inmates to continue serving their sentences in society to better facilitate their reintegration. The debate on its receiving necessary attention. I say this because the department is working on reviewing the parole system. The time has come for DCS to finalize this matter, as reforming our parole system is not just a policy issue, but a moral imperative. People have been asking for a system of fairness and transparency. The current criteria seem not to be appreciated. Although victims of crime are allowed to participate in the parole process, how far do their voices go? That's the question. This calls for a relook in the review and oversight mechanisms. It is critical that this administration finalize this review in the interest of all. Honourable members, legislative reforms are a necessity as we explore new ways of conducting our business. But, most importantly, there have been several judgments that have pushed us to duly align our legal mandates and policies. As such, the Correctional Services Act is further being reviewed, taking into consideration developments in the correctional plan and system, international and regional obligations, the Nelson Mandela rules and judgments impacting on the interpretation of the CSA. This work started in the 6th administration, and our resolve is to see it being concluded without delay. On Nelson Mandela Day, the Department of Correctional Services will join the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in calling for the universal application of the UN Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, the Nelson Mandela Rules. The cardinal factor in the success of correctional services is in its correctional officials being fit for purpose. We shall be paying more attention to the type of investment made in training and development of staff members. It is vital that they are equipped with the skills and the necessary equipment to perform their functions effectively. A well-trained and motivated staff is essential for creating a rehabilitative environment and ridding crime from our correctional services. As part of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security cluster, we should not compromise on enforcing discipline. Our Code Enforcement Unit will continue to play its crucial role, with action already taken against 66 officials for theft, fraud, corruption, and maladministration. The Departmental Investigation Unit has finalized 77% of investigations. The Correctional Services Youth Program aims to place young people in suitable positions within the department through the normal recruitment processes, learnerships, internships, as well as experiential learning. The DCS Leadership Program is one of DCS's foremost programs for the alleviation of poverty and unemployment amongst the youth. The department will further direct its efforts in promoting equality at all levels. We must pay attention to overcrowding, which has become an established phenomenon in our correctional centers. Some have defined it as a wicked problem. A wicked problem is one that is social or cultural in character and is difficult or impossible to address owing to its complexity and interconnection. Overcrowding is a consequence of the rampant crime rate. Overcrowded correctional facilities have a negative impact on all conditions of incarceration, resulting in a restricted living space
Honourable
and
Minister,
such.
please just hold on. I see a hand there.
Is it fine with to speak sitting, Chair? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it might be that we struggle to hear you if you stand, so
If I
it's
stand
fine.
here. No, I was wondering if the minister is willing to take a question about his personal
Yeah, just
conduct
hold
on
on.
anti-black
Let's just first
racism.
inquire about whether he's willing to take a question.
Yes.
before we
I
listen
want to
the
ask about
question.
anti-black racism.
Yeah, thank you.
Honourable Chair, now, I'm not going to take questions at this time. There will be ample time in the committees as well, and I do believe the honourable members will have time to deliver their speeches. I have limited time. Thank you.
Minister. Please continue.
Another point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
You know, the rules say the minister must not read the whole time. He's left with 1 minute and he's been reading. The rule is here. Rule 89 says you must use the speech to refresh your memory. Because now we're worried about your personal competence in doing this thing of correctional service. He's been reading throughout. This is a minister who's asking for a budget.
Yeah, thank
He's
you.
asking for 87 billion. He's been reading all the time.
Thank
Is
you.
he competent to do this job?
Thank you, Honourable Ndlozi. I get your point of order. I will have a careful eye out from where I'm sitting. I'm quite confident that the Minister has largely only refreshed his memory. Thank you, Honourable Ndlozi. Minister, please continue.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Chair, these complex societal issues cannot be addressed by a single state agency, nor solely by the criminal justice system. For the financial year 2022-23, the inmate population increased by 13,833 from 143,223 to 157,056 inmates, constituting a 9.7% upward movement in 1 year. Unsentenced inmates, that is remand detention, compromises 59,574 of these inmates. And our overcrowding reduction strategy is being implemented. And yet, for it to succeed, calls for all entities in the criminal justice system to work in unison. Despite all these challenges, we shall not throw in the towel. Our job is to find solutions and create working systems. Working teams with other criminal justice agencies will strengthen to address the causes of delays in criminal justice process to ensure case backlogs can be approached in a systemic manner and pressure on correctional facilities relieved by joint action. The long-term solution requires departments and agencies within the JCPS cluster to develop comprehensive and evidence-based systems to ensure there are proper reform strategies that can be implemented. Offender rehabilitation defines our standing as a Department of Correctional Services. Key to rehabilitation is empowering offenders to function effectively upon their release, but equally important is to ensure that offenders are involved in production activities whilst incarcerated. The department is committed to ensuring that if offenders create skills, education, and experiences that will reduce reoffending and in turn make safer communities. We will have to become self-efficient. I also want to say that we will also look into the public-private partnerships where we have 2 facilities and to ensure that in the end, it is to the best benefit of the department. There is a court case on, and we will wait whether they will appeal or not. We also believe in transparency. Therefore, we will account to the committee and to the honourable members. Ek sluit af. Hierdie is ongekende tye, 'n veelpartyregering van nasionale eenheid. Ons moet nou hande vat en saamwerk om ons land te bou. By instilling discipline, fostering mutual respect, rooting out fraud and corruption, ensuring that there is consequence management, investing in rehabilitation, education, and restorative justice, we can
Point
create
of
a
order,
system
Chairperson.
that not only corrects,
Order.
but heals.
Thank you,
We have to
Minister.
work,
Your
we have
time
to
has-
work together.
Point of
Thank
order,
you.
Chairperson. No, it's not. I'm sorry. Sorry, Chair. My point of order is not addressed to the speech of the minister, but it's a technical issue. This thing is not translating, and it's been reading Afrikaans. We don't understand Afrikaans.
Okay, no,
So if I could speak Zulu, you wouldn't understand me yourself. So can you just deal with this thing of technicalities so that this house moves?
Thank
Because
no, you're quite correct. Whilst all of us have the right to speak in any of the official languages, the translation services should work. They have been present during the morning plenary. I will ask the table staff to just check whether they are in fact working.
it's because
Honourable
worried,
Member, maybe
Chairperson.
also just check.
I'm worried, Chair. I'm sorry, Chair. I don't know how many chairs we have in this house. Because when I'm addressing you, Chairperson, there are people who are speaking aside and they're speaking on your behalf. I don't know what is going on here. But we are not in a debate of race here, but we're speaking about serious issues of our nation. So whenever we're trying to address an issue in the House, you keep on coming in. I'm not addressing you, but I'm addressing the Chairperson. So, Chairperson, I'm saying since the minister started presenting his speech, it is not audible, there is no translation. It's just English and Afrikaans. Because if we stand up and speak Zulu there, it's going to be a problem even for you. I think for the progress of this house, what is most important is that we all understand what we are saying here. So if I can just come here and sit here and waste my time listening to Afrikaans that I don't understand, then it's going to be useless because I won't be able to engage the minister's speech. So can you please deal with the technicalities of the house even before we come and proceed?
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you.
Honourable Member. It would, of course, have been more helpful if you raised the issue slightly earlier. Thank you. We continue. The next speaker on behalf of the ANC is the Honourable
sorry,
K.A. Ramolobeng.
Sorry, Chair, so I don't disrupt the next speaker. No, Chairperson, I want to speak to the seating arrangement
Yeah,
of the house. And I see that this time they didn't put placards. So you've got a very disorganization here. And I think it's only fair that after the DA, if that is the DA, Mkhonto Esizwe must follow and then the EFF. Let's do that quickly because this is not right. Members are squeezed who are part of the parliament. And there are small parties there, like Swart. Honorable Swart is sitting there like he got more than 30,000 votes. He must come this side.
thank you,
And
Honourable.
our people want to see their representatives. Just allow the house. Also the diversity, man. It's not nice what is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Ndlozi. As you rightly point out, seating is an issue in these small venues. For now, we're not going to disrupt the procedures to rearrange everyone. Honourable Ramolobeng, you're next up.
Thanks, House Chair. Honorable Chairperson, Minister Groenewald, Deputy Minister Njali Njali, members of the House, National Commissioner, Mr. Tobachali, Inspecting Judge Cameron, honorable members, good afternoon. Budget Vote 2022 is tabled and debated just 3 days before the day the United Nations General Assembly declared as International Nelson Mandela Day. It is perhaps important that we take a moment and reflect on what our former president, Utata, a man who dedicated his life to the cause of freedom, human dignity, justice, said, open quote, "It is said that no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but it must be judged on how it treats its lowest citizens." Close quote. House Chair, this budget vote contributes to a just, peaceful, and safer South Africa through the effective and humane incarceration of inmates and the rehabilitation and social integration of offenders at an overarching level. It contributes to outcome 3 of the National Development Plan. All people are and feel safe. Over the past 2 parliamentary terms, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and Correctional Services were combined as one, although with separate budgets. We appreciate the split into 2 separate departments. This move will assist greatly in our oversight responsibilities. We extend our appreciation to the Portfolio Committee and Subcommittee of Justice and Correctional Services of the 6th term for all the hard work. House Chair, the DCS tabled its annual performance plan and budget on the 9th of July 2024 before the Portfolio Committee. The DCS has identified the following 3 focus areas for 2024-2025 financial year: implementation of the self-sufficiency strategy and sustainability framework, providing adequate security at correctional centers, lastly, facilitating restorative justice. The DCS will receive 27.8 billion in 2024-2025. This is an increase of 4.47% or 1186.6 billion from the 2023-2024 allocation. The allocation is projected to increase to 30.3 billion over the medium term, which is 2026 to 2027. Of the total allocation for 2024-2025, 70% or 19.4 billion goes towards compensation of employees. The DCS budget is distributed across 5 programs. Administration receives 5 billion, incarceration receives 16.8 billion, rehabilitation receives 2.1 billion, care receives 2.5 billion, and lastly, social reintegration receives 1.2 billion. A combined 79% of the allocation goes towards the administration and incarceration programs. The rehabilitation and social reintegration programs together receive only 12% of the overall budget for 2024-2025, while the care programs receives 9%. The Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services, which is JICS, receives a transfer from the vote of 114.6 million in 2024-2025, 120 million in 2025-2026, and 129 million in 2026-2027. House Chair, the DCS intends to have an unqualified audit report with reduced findings in 2024-2025. In the previous financial years, the Auditor General raised the issue of uncertainty of exceptional litigation as a matter of emphasis. The committee urges the department to ensure that this matter is addressed in the current financial year and to provide quarterly update on how this is being addressed. The committee further urges the department to target a clean audit instead of reduced findings. House Chair, the committee will schedule a meeting with JICS to get a briefing on how inspections will be carried out in this current financial year. The DCS has set the target for IMSS at 26% for the 2024-2025 financial year, although the target for this indicator was set at 12% in the 2022-2023 period. This was not achieved. The committee will closely monitor progress on a quarterly basis. The committee is deeply concerned with the budget reduction for both rehabilitation and social integration programs by 42.4 million and 5.5 million respectively in the 2024-2025 financial year. These are the two most important programs in the DCS as they ensure that offenders are rehabilitated to change their offending behavior and are then successfully reintegrated back to society as law-abiding citizens. The DCS is urged to reprioritize their plans and ensure that rehabilitation remains at the center of departmental activities and that all activities under social reintegrations are not compromised. The same goes for the care program. House Chair, overcrowding remains the biggest challenge facing the Department of Correctional Services. The department has set the target for overcrowding at less than 50%. The committee urges the department to come up with other alternative measures that will reduce overcrowding in correctional centers, including electronic monitoring. The committee further encourages the department to work with other role players within the criminal justice system, especially the Department of Justice. The committee is concerned about the lack of official accommodation for correctional officials as well as their safety. The committee therefore calls upon the DCS to address these matters as a matter of agency. Gangsterism and smuggling of contrabands are some of the biggest challenges in correctional facilities. Integration of to see an improvement in the department equity target for women. We urge the department not to reduce this target in the near future. We would also welcome an increase if that happens. House Chair, having considered the annual performance plan for 2024-2025 and the budget vote of the Department of Correctional Services, the committee supports it and recommends that the National Assembly approves this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Engelbreg of the Democratic Alliance.
Honourable members, overcrowding remains the most pressing challenge confronting the department. One of the principal contributors to this is the ever-growing amount of remand detainees. The incarceration program, which commands the largest budget allocation for the 24-25 year, has seen an increase of 1 billion rand compared to the previous fiscal year. This increase comes at the expense of critical programs such as rehabilitation and social reintegration, whose budgets have been reduced. It is clear that this reallocation is driven by increased remand detainee numbers. The department is compelled to allocate more resources to the incarceration program, disadvantaging others. This misallocation is not a reflection on the department's deficiencies, but rather a symptom of dysfunctionality within the courts and the National Prosecuting Authority. The DA has proposed in the past, and we do so here again, interdepartmental solutions must be explored. We need to engage the Department of Justice, the courts, and the NPA to consider extending court hours to reduce the high remand detainee numbers. The Department of Correctional Services intends to achieve an unqualified audit with reduced matters of emphasis in the 24-25 financial years. This is commendable. However, the 22-23 year, the Auditor General has raised the issue of uncertainty of exceptional litigation as a matter of emphasis for the department. This risk will persist for as long as the issue of overcrowding remains unresolved. The budget for building and other fixtures has been slashed from 441 million to 222 million. This will exacerbate the overcrowding problem. Despite this, the department has set a target to reduce the overcrowding to less than 50%. This is questionable given that the targets for the 22-23 years was set at 32% with actual performance at 46%. Clearly, special remission did not alleviate overcrowding. Although the new minister announced 17 new infrastructure projects for the next year, none addressed the urgent need for additional bed space. Rehabilitation, a core responsibility, is the second smallest budgeted program, comprising only 8% of the budget. The department only provides rehabilitation programs to offenders serving sentences longer than 24 months. How many offenders are serving shorter sentences? What services are provided to them, or are they merely left to sit idle until released? The DA recommends that the current rehabilitation program be re-evaluated. Given the evolving nature of crimes, length of sentences, and recidivism rate, we must determine if these programs remain relevant and effective, or if they have become partly or completely obsolete. Dr. Casper Lotter, a conflict criminologist from the Northwest University, did remarkable research in this field, which might prove useful. I recommend that the department engage with him in this regard. It is noteworthy that targets for the inspection of correctional facilities and public-private partnerships have been removed from the current financial year. It is particularly interesting that the G4S public-private partnership facility in Mangaung has yet to be taken over by the Department of Correctional Services, contrary to former Minister Lamola's indications. A core responsibility of the department should never have been contracted out. I hope the Thabo Bester debacle served as a lesson well learned. In a democratic society, the legitimacy of the criminal justice system hinges on public confidence. For years, our nation has been besieged by alarmingly high rates of violent crime and pervasive corruption. Numerous failed attempts to curb rampant crime, and the perception that those involved in corruption often enjoy impunity have eroded public confidence in our criminal justice system to a perilous level. The Department of Correctional Services is integral to the criminal justice system, and public confidence in the department's ability to fulfill its constitutional mandate is paramount. Overcrowding must be addressed. The persistent dysfunctionality within the Department of Justice, which inundates the correctional system with remand detainees, can no longer be tolerated. In the 22-23 fiscal year, the target for economic opportunities for offenders, parolees, and probationers was set at 36. Yet performance soared to 592. For 24-25 year, the target has been inexplicably set at a mere 54. Why such a low target following a significant overachievement? Similarly, the target for victim participation in the restorative justice program was exceeded by 13,451. Yet, the 24-25 target is set at just 5,300. This discrepancy is puzzling and it needs adjustment. The target for the implementation of the controversial integrated inmate management system has been set at 26% for the next financial year. Reflecting on the 22-23 period, the target was a modest 12% with only 10% achieved. Considering the troubled history of IIMS, the expenses already incurred, the minimal benefits reaped, and the ongoing litigation against an underperforming contractor demanding additional funds, it is sometimes prudent to cut your losses and move on. Systems like these should be the property of the department, as it is with the new DCS-developed electronic monitoring technology. Licensing agreements with outside entities expose DCS to unnecessary risk. The Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services has now been transferred from the administration program to incarceration, likely due to the stopgap measure in the recently passed bill. The DA insists that the long overdue JICS bill should be expedited without further delay. I extend my best wishes to the National Commissioner and the newly appointed Minister and Deputy Minister for the forthcoming term. Thank you.
The next speaker on behalf of the MK party is the Honourable Nombalo. There is a possibility that it is a maiden speech, Honourable Member. If so, welcome.
House Chairperson, honorable members of the committee, honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, officials from the Department of Correctional Service, and most importantly, progressive forces who are not part of the GNU circus. As the MK party would like to first register our deepest discontent on the annual performance plan of 2024-2025, which was tendered by the officials of the Department of Correctional Service last week for its numerous shortcomings. Subsequent to that, we place it on record that our discontent does not originate from a popularity stance, but from our revolutionary morality and strong desire for a crime-free society in which criminality is not the order of the day, in which women can walk freely even during the late hours of the night without any fear of victimization, in which lawbreakers pay the highest price for not respecting the law, in which our prisons have not turned into hotspots for institutionalized gangsterism, in which there are no corrupt prison warders who unethically render their services at the disposal of dangerous inmates in order for them to get bribes in return. It is our firm view that even though our justice system is restorative, but by its nature and design, prison should not be user-friendly to inmates to a point where they become too comfortable, as though they are in a hotel for holiday. The use of drugs and cell phones by inmates is one of our major concerns. What concerns us the most is that this misconduct becomes fashionable and appears to grow unchallenged. Incarceration should incorporate punitive repercussions which make prison to be an undesirable place for everyone. A budget with no clear plan designed to circumvent this illegal and unethical misconduct is as good as non-existent. Our legitimate expectation was that the Minister will first outline a comprehensive survey of all prevalent shortcomings in the correctional service system and thereafter present swift solutions thereto, which find equitable reception in the allocation of budget. As a matter of principle, We are not going to conform to a conservative orthodox of supporting budgets because they have good English and innovative colors. As the MK party, we will only support budgets with a clear programmatic framework that will be impactful in the lives of ordinary people who are on the receiving end of criminal activities. We view this budget as a continuation of piecemeal palliative reforms to which the ruling party has been loyal since 1994. It is peculiar and embarrassing that the annual performance plan of 2024-2025 presented by the department to the portfolio committee does not properly address major concerns, whereas we are expected to come here and support this budget. But what can you expect from a government that has been established through a marriage of convenience called GNU, while in actual fact it is a government of blue lights and cabinet positions? It's a government founded on an eroded political foundation characterized by an ideological bankruptcy. Rape is also a common misconduct in prisons, especially in the male sections. Once again, there is no clear plan of how this can be eradicated. The report does not even bother itself on giving us statistics of reported and recorded rape cases and how it plans to overcome them. Safety and protection of prison warders is at the list of our concerns as the MK party. Some prison warders have lost their lives because they are exposed to a dangerous environment every day. Once again, there is no clear strategy on how safety and protection of prison warders during the working hours can be enhanced through the budget. House Chair, the only budget we can support as the MK party is a budget which does not only address challenges which I've highlighted, but which subsequently make a proposition that in pursuit of local economic development, the department should procure goods and services from the local entrepreneurs who are resident within the area in which a prison is situated. Notwithstanding the objective of local economic development, this procurement system can also minimize expenditure on goods and services. Only progressive governments understand that economic development is at the center of total liberation, not this GNU myth. The annual performance plan shows that prisons are overcrowded and crime continues to rise. Contrary to this, there is no commitment to establish new infrastructure assets and further decentralize correctional services facilities to township and former homelands areas. House Chair, the GNU protagonist and apologist, only the GNU protagonist and apologist can see logic and justice in this budget because their only obsession is power and benefits thereof. They don't care about the people of South Africa. As the MK party, we don't just object, but we vehemently object to this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Deale of the EFF. And if I'm not mistaken, this might be the first speech of the Honourable Deale in the National Assembly. Welcome.
Stilo, the economic freedom fighters reject the vote 22 on correctional services led by the GNU mess. We equally reject the appointment of an active advocate for apartheid to oversee the political management of correctional centers, which by design continue to house predominantly young black population. Harena tshepo nix. Lefapha le eteletswe pele ke motho o tswang mo parting e ithapeletsang gore ANC e ba fe freedom or independence ya orani. A ka se re thusi ka sepe. Modula Stilo, the country's correctional centers have been a haven of criminals, allowing those meant to be guiding criminals to be at the top of the food chain of criminal activity. Our correctional facilities are rotten to the core. They are rotten because some of those who lead the institution are rotten themselves. Keeping young black people in prison is surely profitable for the select group of individuals who are hell-bent at filling their own pockets. While this is the case, our prison facilities are turning petty offenders into hardcore criminals who come out of the system to be a menace of society. While this is the case, our prison facilities are turning petty criminals into hardcore criminals. According to the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, which itself is chronically underfunded, South African prisons have a population of more than 157,000 inmates, 16,000 of whom are serving life sentences. There are only 119,000 bed spaces available in our prisons at the moment, meaning that the correctional services are overcrowded by 40,000 prisoners. But 43,000 of these prison inmates are remand detainees. You ask the question, why? It costs the department 125,000 per annum to keep individual inmates in custody. Most of these inmates live in overcrowded conditions, driving them to various forms of illnesses, especially mental illnesses. Consistently, the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services reports of various problems of inmates within the prison, that this leads to growing problems of mental illnesses amongst them. It is for this reason that about 40% of deaths in prison are as a result of suicide. The Department of Correctional Services is in crisis. There's absolutely no state capacity. It is failing its constitutional responsibility to be corrective, not a retributive service. The flip side of this is that thousands of young black people, most of whom are remanded for petty crimes, will have their lives changed permanently inside a very corrupt system of correctional service. This situation cannot continue any longer. And the state must commit to doing the following. There must be an inquiry done to probe the perpetual rape by male-on-male inmates, often used to weaponize our people. Too much sexual offenses are taking place within correctional services than in any other institution in our country. Do a very urgent audit on seriousness of crimes of remand detainees and release from prison all those who had committed petty crimes. Increase the funding and the mandate of the Judicial Inspectorate of Prisons beyond the current 1 billion rand increase to allow it to be thorough in its work of inspecting prisons and holding the department accountable, independently so. Build sufficient capacity to handle mental illness cases in prisons. Transform correctional services to include compulsory education and skilling for all prisoners. This will be followed by scrapping of criminal records, such as of ex-convicts who were convicted of certain schedules of offense, depending on the seriousness of the offenses. Ensure that no correctional service facility or program is run by private corporate company, as these are not interested in the well-being of our inmates or our people, but in making much money as possible. Hence, Renalebo Thabo Bester cases and his cronies. The less said of him, the better for all of us. Cancel all catering contracts and make sure that inmates themselves engage in productive work, such as agriculture, and that all other inmates be trained to cook for the prisons in which they are held. Provide incentives to inmates who engage in productive and corrective activities, and those who embark on personal improvement activities such as formal education. Provide regular medical checkups for inmates to ensure that illnesses, particularly those mental illnesses, are picked up at the early stages and inmates get given the necessary treatment for these illnesses. Root out gangsterism within the prisons by getting stricter prison warders. This must include regular rotation of prison warders between prisons to ensure that no warder gets to stay in one prison for a longer period so that they get familiar with inmates. The budget tabled does not address any meaningful way any of these challenges. Hence, we vehemently reject the budget.
The next speaker I have on my list is the Honourable Nwanku from the IFP, but I suspect it is a stand-in.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Prison facilities in South Africa have solid our past with them. As a nation, we look at them as the torture chambers, in some instances, places of guaranteed death. We have lost many great leaders under the past apartheid government who are detained unjustly. Yet another 30 years later, we have little to prove these facilities have changed in ways that activities rehabilitate the fabric of our society. We must remain steadfast to instill a sense of belonging, constitutionally, ethics, and values among all of us. Igebengu azikwesabi ukuboshwa ngoba zidla kahle. In fact, correctional facilities are welcomed by many criminals as they are able to reconnect with their gangs and affiliate in these facilities. They continue to run syndicates from inside. This leads to little progress in reducing crime, such as drugs, murder, gender-based violence in our communities. Whilst we believe in bringing the balance of light for incarcerated perpetrators, we must ensure that innocent victims and the law-abiding communities receive justice for criminal committees against them. We must offer facilities and programs that discourage a return to criminal activities. Unfortunately, the above is dependent on a working economy. We must prioritize all programs of government that force the growth of illegal economic and punish that is illegally and unjust. The IFP has previously raised its concern with regard to the lack of funding for inspectors in prisons. We hope that this new administration will take this into account and force regular and transparent inspections. The minister is called to streamline the department budget in order to facilitate better upgrade on our correctional facilities and avoid the embarrassment of the last administration. We refer to the double bester breakout. We call for specialized facilities to be elected and made available to deal with various criminal networks, especially those that transcend international borders. We are aware of the interlinked cartels that sell rhino horns, drugs, and endangered species. The intensification for specialized facilities is for police to have oversight of this network and get intelligent in bringing those multi-billion rand industry to a stop. I think the government cannot associate with the malnutrition of inmates. We must prioritize a self-sustaining way for inmates to generate their own food. This will encourage in prison to continue the economy and shy away from becoming a re-offender. The IFP is supporting this budget. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Denner. Honourable members, you would note from the speakers list the Honourable Denner has indicated that you will speak Afrikaans and English. We have inquired. The translation services are there, so if you just switch channels, you should be able to hear in your official language of choice when she speaks Afrikaans.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable House Chair, the Freedom Front Plus's slogan for the 2024 general election was to restore and build. And by accepting the position of Minister of Correctional Services, we are indeed putting our money where our mouth is. We are indeed experiencing strange, interesting and difficult, as we can see, but promising political times and part of the government of national unity in a key department as correctional services. We intend to implement the steadfast values principles and plans that have characterized the Freedom Front Plus for the past 30 years. There is no doubt that South Africa is a country in trouble. Aside from our economic woes that include staggeringly high unemployment and government debt alongside a deplorable education and healthcare system, we are also experiencing one of the highest crime rates in the world, with violent crime and GBVF being much higher than international standards. To restore and build our beautiful country and ensure that the safety of our citizens, we will need a holistic approach from the peace and security cluster to not only prevent and combat crime, but also to prosecute, detain, and rehabilitate those who commit crime. Between 86 and 94% of convicted criminals in South Africa reoffend after leaving prison, confirming that the prevalent pattern of criminal behavior persists after detention, proving that currently the rehabilitation programs in our prisons are not up to standard. This will be further hampered by a reduction in the rehabilitation and social reintegration budget, unfortunately. The fact that our facilities are overcrowded and have become breeding grounds for perpetuated crime in the form of gangsterism, drug abuse, prostitution, and corruption obviously does not aid the goal of rehabilitation and reintegration of offenders back into society. Sterk, streng en standvastige optrede wat hierdie tendense hokslaan is dringend nodig en die VF+ kan u verseker, voorsitter, dat onder die leierskap van minister Groenewald dit die departement van korrektiewe dienste se voorland is. Een gruwelike nag in 2006 het Marius van der Westhuizen sy vrou Charlotte probeer straf deur haar 3 kinders koelbloedig te vermoor. Marius is tot 24 jaar tronkstraf gevonnis, waarom dit nie lewenslang was nie, is ook 'n oop vraag. Sy aansoek om parool is egter onlangs toegestaan, nadat hy slegs 13 jaar van die 24 jaar uitgedien het. Dit ten spyte van 'n slagofferimpakverslag van 24 bladsye en sielkundige verslae wat bevestig dat hy altyd 'n gevaar vir die samelewing en spesifiek vir Charlotte sal wees. En natuurlik die skokkende en skandelike aard van sy oortreding. Ons het reeds 'n ernstige beroep op die minister gedoen om sy magte en gevolge die wet te gebruik om die aangeleentheid vir hersiening te verwys. Hoopelik sal gesonde verstand seëvier in die beoordeling van die paroolraad van die Mamasbury gevangenis se gruwelike oorsig in belang van geregtigheid en die breër gemeenskap. Ons versoek ook dat die paroolstelsel as 'n geheel bo aan die minister se agenda geplaas word. Hierdie stelsel is uiters gebrekkig en moet dringend hersien word. We cannot have victims such as Alison Botha learn from the media that the men who gang raped her, stabbed her 37 times, slit her throat and left her for dead have been granted parole. Or Charlotte van der Westhuizen, who has already lost her 3 children, live in fear for the rest of her life. This is unacceptable. Voorsitter, ten spyte van al die rillerstories wat ons elke dag hoor, is die mooiste kenmerk van ons Suid-Afrikaanse samelewing ons veerkragtigheid. Alison Botha is een so voorbeeld. Die regering van nasionale eenheid is nog so voorbeeld. Die VF+ werk vir verandering. Ons wil herstel en bou in ons land en in korrektiewe dienste. En dit is presies wat ons gaan doen. Ten spyte van 'n beperkte begroting, al die negativiteit wat ons hoor en baie ander uitdagings. Probleme gaan tromp op aangespreek word. Swak dissipline.
Your time has unfortunately expired.
Ek wil net sê oom Pieter is hier, julle sal sien. Dankie voorsitter.
Good afternoon, members. The next speaker will be from ActionSA. Is anybody in the house from ActionSA? Thank you very much. Honourable Leader, you may take the podium.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to our Minister, Deputy Minister, and honourable members. Allow me to start by saying that the current narrative of government is fast running out of runway. We constantly hear phrases such as, we are embarking on, we will be, and we are putting together. South Africans are tired of those phrases because that's all we've been hearing for the past 30 years. Minister, I heard your speech. I didn't hear you say anything about cell phones and the impact of the use of cell phones in prisons. I didn't hear you say anything about the fact that our children from our communities go in as men, as boys, and they come out as women. from those prisons. I did not hear you say anything about the fact that those prisons are indeed not prison cells, but they are more like holiday resorts, Minister. It is a place where you go in as an amateur prisoner and you come out as a seasoned criminal, where criminals spend all of their time sitting and actually now becoming content creators. They become amazing at TikTok and at Instagram, Minister, while we as parents and people in the community have to watch how that type of justice prevails. You know that in South Africa, it is not often where we hear of successful convictions and sentencing. And in the case that we do, that is what we are subjected to. Only in South Africa do we actually hear that this government spends almost close to 400 Rand a day to feed these inmates. And we need to change that name from inmates to prisoners. We need to change that name from correction, because we are not of service to prisoners. It needs to be a prison, because we cannot have a sustainable and ask ourselves, why are the prisoners being overcrowded? Because we accommodate prisoners more than what we accommodate our children in our communities. Minister, unfortunately, based on what we have heard here today, in the absence of programs that addresses gangsterism, in the absence that addresses corrupt wardeners, in the absence of a budget that does not speak to the reality that is faced in most of our communities, we cannot as ActionSA support this budget. It does not address the many social ills that is plaguing our communities, where they go in as runners and as peddlers of our community, but they come out and they exit that system as kingpins. Prison in this day and age, we have seen it, is a place where you go and you master your skill. Minister, so kan het nie aangaan nie. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker will be the Deputy Minister, the Honourable Deputy Minister of Correctional Services. Thank you. You may take the podium.
Thank you very much, House Chair. This would be my maiden speech also, as I'm new this side. Honorable House Chairperson, Minister of Correctional Services, Dr. Groenewald, Deputy Ministers present if there's any, Chairperson of our Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, Honorable Ramolebong, and our Portfolio Committee members, our National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, Mr. Tobachale, Inspecting Judge, Justice Edwin Cameron, members of the National Council of Correctional Services, members of the parole boards, our distinguished guests, good afternoon. The Department of Correctional Services forms part of the criminal justice system that seeks to realize the vision of ensuring that living in South Africa feel safe at home, at school, and at work, and that they enjoy a community life free of fear, a safe and secure country that encourages economic growth and transformation, and thereof, it is an important contributor in addressing factors such as poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Within the extraordinary challenging socio-economic context, the DCS has realigned its strategy and interventions to increase safety in our communities. Honorable members, the level of crimes in our country are a concern for us as correctional services because there are snowballing effect, insecurity risk, and threats in our facilities. Over the past 3 years, the department has had a basic training for emergency support team to our officials to provide additional capacity to respond to various situations such as riots, violent attacks, high-risk tactical guarding, escorting, and the use of minimum force, amongst others. We have been conducting searches, head counts, and other security procedures to maintain adequate security standards. This was done to guard and preserve the integrity and the dignity of the officials, inmates, and visitors to all our facilities. What needs to be understood is that correctional centers serve multiple purposes. They are centers where justice is administered, providing a deterrent to crime and the means of rehabilitation for those who violate our laws. However, there's also institution of second chances offering education, vocational training, and counseling to help inmates to turn their lives around. For these to be effective, the environment within our correctional facilities must be both safe and secured. We have observed a disturbing trend where informal settlement are mushrooming closer to our facilities. This is then followed by deliberate efforts to disrupt our services. Illegal connection to the electricity transformers and consistency in contraband items such being thrown into the terrain are becoming a daily occurrences. Once one of the correctional facilities being gravely affected by this is St. Albans in Gqeberha. Security measures are essential to prevent escape, contraband smuggling, and other security breaches that could endanger officials, inmates, and the public. Effective security ensures that correctional centers fulfill their role in protecting the society from those who have committed crimes. Effectively, our security measures have seen the department record a reduction in escapes, assault, and natural deaths. The department has deployed various mechanisms in dealing with perennial escapes in the past, and indeed, it has made difference. There has been a reduction in a number of escapes between 2022 and 2021-22 financial year and 2022-23 financial years as a result of our effective implementation of escape prevention strategies and the adherence of the standard operating procedures. Over the MTF, the department will continue to reduce all security incidences across our correctional facilities. Escapes will be reduced by 0.002% across the MTEF from 0.029% in 2024-25 financial years to 0.027 in 2026-27 financial year. From the 2018-19 to 2023 financial years, there was an improvement in the rate of injuries to offenders due to deployment of the emergency security teams to identify correctional facilities to improve support in the clean-up search operations as well as effective implementation of assault prevention. We intend reducing these injuries by 0.05% across the medium term as to 4.45% in 2024-25 financial year to 4.35 in 2026-27 financial year, while unnatural deaths will be maintained at 0.032. The implementation of the escape, assault, and death prevention strategies in our facilities has ensured that inmates are held in safe, secure, and humane condition. These strategies are not just safe measures, but multidisciplinary approach to security. The DCS has been implementing the Festive Season Security Operational Campaign annually from December to January to intensify security measures during the festive. As a department, we've been exploring approaches aiming at curbing incidents to take place after lockup time, such as unnatural death caused by suicides. We require also more than just regular patrols and monitor after hours, so that the distress situations are acted upon timely. The National Security Committee is looking at the current process to identify the gaps that can be closed. The wearing of civilian clothes by the remand detainees presents a heightened security risk due to the difficulty of distinguishing between the remand detainees and the civilians that are working in our facilities. The state of some of the private clothes of the effects of fair hygiene. Section 48 of Correctional Services Act makes provision for us to supply the remandees with uniform, which is different from the prison prescribed in terms of the offenders and may be worn, they may not be worn in court. That is the yellow one. The department is thus enforcing a yellow uniform for all our remand detainees. Yes, was trained in terms of the material and resources, but we are being made to ensure that this happens ensuring the safety of and secure for our correctional facilities, which is a complex and essential task. This requires a holistic approach that prioritizes a well-being of the inmates in terms of the safety and security of our communities. We can also deal with the availability and access to medicine in critical and ensuring provision of comprehensive primary healthcare services to inmate population. Our correctional facilities, there is a total of 243 correctional centers across the country, which have clinics that cater for health needs for all our inmates. This is linked to the departmental facilities that is responsible for provision of medication. As at 31 March 2024, the department has managed to ramp up the portfolio of pharmacies to 37, and these are fully aligned with the requirements of good pharmacy practice of South Africa. A total of 13 pharmacies has been established in 5 years. These are established so that the offenders can use them in terms of making sure that they access their medication. The project entails innovative conversion of our existing storeroom and making them our pharmacy as they are being established, and that is contributing to priority 3 of the government in relation of your education and skills framework that is outlined. Since the advent of democracy, Honorable Chair, our community and corrections has become the core component of South Africa and after the criminal justice system, as it provides a useful and less costly alternative to incarceration. Communities and correction is a shift. Thus, it is a focusing on the resulted in the establishment of expansion and diversion. In terms of our community correction is a mandate for provision of supervision of vendors, your probationers, your parolees awaiting trials, and also those are placed under the system that our communities orders and hence public safety. There are 218 community corrections officers serving parolees, probationers, and awaiting trial persons, effecting monitoring and supervision. The integration of our offenders is under this system of community corrections provide offenders.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Your time has expired.
Thank you very much, Chair.
And my apologies for not noting that it's your maiden speech. Thank you. Next on the list will be the African Christian Democratic Party, Honorable Swart. Thank you.
Baie dankie voorsitter. Voorsitter, die ACDP wil graag die nuwe minister en die adjunkminister baie sterkte toewens met hulle aanstelling tot hierdie belangrike pos. And although, Minister, there are many, many challenges, the department is led by an excellent commissioner in my experience, but they are hampered by budget cuts. And we wring our hands as we sit here, but we're the ones that appropriate the budget at the end of the day. And yes, we understand we've got fiscal constraints and a fiscal ceiling, but can we expect the department to provide proper services, rehabilitation, restorative justice when we are not appropriating the correct budget? As we say now, as we sit now, the department will need to prioritize their plans and in such a way that they do not compromise the rehabilitation of the offenders. The 3 focus areas pointed out: self-sufficiency, security, adequate security, and restorative justice. Now, we in the ACDP have a special interest and have pioneered the concept of restorative justice over many, many years. And whilst there is a place for punitive justice, but restorative justice, Honourable Minister, must take precedence. Otherwise, you're going to have your incarcerated persons coming out worse than when they went in. Honourable Minister, overcrowding has been referred to by many members here, and it's a perennial problem. The department is the receiver at the end of the criminal justice chain. And I fully agree with those speakers that said, engage with the courts, with the NPA, engage with the magistracy, although respecting the independence of the judiciary. Let me give you an example. In the previous parliament, we visited a prison where we found a remand detainee owed 100 Rand bail. And that person, as an honourable member from Action South Africa, and thank you for your passionate speech, is incarcerated, costing the state 400 rand per day. It doesn't make sense. We engaged then with the magistracy and were able to resolve that issue. But this is clearly, there are legislative provisions that are not being properly used. And I would urge you to look at the bail protocol, look at Section 49G of the Correctional Services Act, Section 63(1) and Section 63A of the Criminal Procedure Act. They are not being optimally used and can reduce the awaiting trial prisoners, many of whom will be found not guilty. In the last few seconds, I would like to thank the officials and thank the judicial Judge Cameron, the inspecting judge, for the incredible work that they are doing under very, very difficult circumstances, and wish the new administration everything of the very best in improving our correctional services for the betterment of all in society. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have the ANC, Honorable Klute, maiden speech. Welcome.
House Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans, the African National Congress rises in support of the budget vote. The African National Congress rises in the support of the budget votes from the year 1911, when the Person and the Reform Motorized Act was promulgated. South African criminal justice system has undergone major reforms. The legislation decreed that prisons of the Union of South Africa would be strictly segregated, operate in secret, and use corporal punishment. Abuse grew to appalling heights over decades. Incarceration under the repressive apartheid system made little to no distinction between activists, criminals, children, and adults. The colonial apartheid prison system was meant to break, dehumanize, and warehouse offenders away from society. Since 1994, there have been moves to reform the criminal justice system away from the apartheid legacy. Chairperson, in its articulation of the vision for the country, the ANC, ready to govern, state that the prison service for the country must play its part, not simply to restraining convicts, but in rehabilitating them. The African National Congress asserted that adequate resources should be made available for the human accommodation, education, training, and job placement of convicts. The ANC warned that the failure to do so would lead to expenditure on an ever-increasing number of new jails. The African National Congress remains committed against any inhuman and cruel punishment. The approval by government of the National Crime Prevention Strategy in the 1996 and adoption of the integrated justice system motivated the department to transform South African prisons from being so-called University of Crime.
Mr. Speaker, can you just hold for a second? Can you grab a seat? Could I just ask the House not to speak while the Speaker is speaking, please? I think it's disrespectful. So could I just ask that the chit-chatter simmer down? Thank you very much. You may continue.
University of Crime or criminal headquarters into effective rehabilitation centers. Section 35 of the Constitution details the rights of arrest, detain, and accused persons. In 2004, the Department of Correctional Service adopted the White Paper on Corrections as a policy document which lays out the vision for the Department of Correctional Service. The 2004 White Paper takes what it intends in the Constitution to a higher level. In that, it defines rehabilitation as the core business of the department, provides the minimum standards of the human detention, but does not articulate the right to rehabilitation service for offenders and prisoners in particular. We are deeply concerned that the budget of the department is not consistent with the white paper on correctional service. As aforementioned, rehabilitation is at the heart of the white paper on corrections. Social reintegration of offenders is also critical. Budget cuts will negatively affect the work of the department. We will continue keeping an eye on this matter, engaging with the department. The Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Service facilitates the inspection of correctional facilities to ensure that the offenders' rights are respected. And Inspectorate reports or any corrupt, dishonest practice in correctional centers. JICS articulate the detailed standards regulating the condition and the detentions and the treatment of incarcerated persons and represented the move towards internationally acceptable correctional system. I end off with a quote by Clint Smith, open quote, being incarcerated does not mean being devoid of the capacity to learn, grow, own, and think. And it's critical that prisons provide space where learning can be both cultivated and encouraged. Close. While efforts have been made by the democratic government to transform corrections, it is important to remind people that the crime does not pay. Do not find yourself on the wrongdoing side of the law. The ANC support the budget.
Speaker. Okay, appreciate it. Time has expired. We're looking for someone from Al Jamal. Is anybody here from Al Jamal? Okay, that's not Al Jamal. NCC. Is there anybody here from NCC? Can I just check? UAT? Is there anybody from UAT? No. Okay, then we shall go over to the DA, Honorable Klopper, maiden speech.
Honourable members, today as I stand before you to deliver my maiden speech, I'm deeply grateful and humbled by the opportunity to serve the people of South Africa as members of this committee. For correctional services to fulfill their constitutional mandate, they have to ensure that our
Speaker, can you
communities...
just hold on for a second? Could I remind members not to videotape or record or take videos while we are in session? This is a house rule. Thank you very much. You may continue.
For correctional services to fulfill their constitutional mandate, they have to ensure that our communities and their well-being remain the focus of their budgetary considerations, their mandate being the incarceration of inmates under legal and humane conditions where sensible, and effective rehabilitation of detainees takes place, leading to their eventual social reintegration back into society as productive and contributing members. With every new administration comes hope. The hope that we can improve and chart a new course. This administration stands out for its diverse composition, a clear departure from the past. I am confident in my hope that we will be moving towards an honest, transparent, caring, and inclusive government. However, the true test of this new direction lies ahead of us. I want to draw your attention to three key aspects: overcrowding and recidivism, the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, and the rehabilitation and social reintegration of inmates. The statement made by the Minister and the National Commissioner made it clear that the Department of Correctional Services is aware of its shortcomings and challenges. Minister Groenewald highlighted the significant concerns of overcrowding in correctional services. This issue not only jeopardizes the safety of inmates, but staff as well. It also hampers the rehabilitation process, leading to an increased recidivism rate and further overcrowding. The Democratic Alliance proposes solutions that focus on restorative justice, encouraging family engagements both within and outside the correctional services, and enhances cooperation with civil society groups. The Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services currently lacks independence due to its budgetary dependence on the Department of Correctional Services. Proper functioning can only be achieved once long overdue JICS bill is introduced and enacted, allowing the Inspectorate to independence to fulfill its constitutional responsibilities. The Democratic Alliance calls for the process to draft and enact the JICS bill without delay.
ensuring that the Inspectorate reports directly to Parliament as an independent entity as it should. It's disappointing to see a reduction in the budget for the correctional service rehabilitation and social integration programs for the 24-25 fiscal year, with cuts of 42.4 and 5.5 million respectively. This is in stark contrast to a 1 billion increase in the incarceration budget. The department must prioritize the prevention of wasteful expenditure and decrease litigation against the department. The self-sustainability program in food production is, however, an encouraging cost-saving method. In conclusion, Minister, we cannot afford to spend another term merely acknowledging our difficulties without addressing them. While we recognize the challenges that have plagued the Department of Correctional Services, we acknowledge the efforts by senior managements to come up with solutions. The department should not be discouraged by budgetary constraints, but continue to do more with less. It is my wish that the 7th administration be dedicated to rolling up our sleeves and delivering services to our people in what they expect and indeed what they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker will be from the ANC, Honorable Sokopo. Maiden speech.
Thank you. House Chair, members of the executive, members of the House, compatriots. The ANC supports the budget. A reflection on the transformation that has been ushered in by the ANC government has already been made by my colleagues in this House. Over the past 30 years, we have transformed prison services, which have placed emphasis on brutal punishment and dehumanization, to some of our heroes, President Mandela, Umgoveni Mbeki, Robert Sobukwe, Steve Biko, and others. The list is endless. Into a correctional center that is aligned to a human rights culture which places emphasis on safe, security, and human incarceration, rehabilitating offenders and their social integration. The dawn of our democracy have gave birth to a constitution that is founded on human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedom. It is also founded on universal adult suffrage, a national common voters' roll that regulates elections and multi-party systems of democratic government. At this juncture, we wish to thank all South Africans who have exercised their democratic right to vote. More so, we show our sincere appreciation to those that voted for the African National Congress. A case law in the Constitutional Court in a case in August, and others versus the Electoral Commission. I quote, "In a country of great disparities of wealth and power that have the right to vote, declares that whoever we are, whether we are rich or poor, exalted or disgraced, we all belong to the same democratic South African nation, that our destinies are intertwined in a single interactivity policy," close quote. 17,129 inmates in South Africa have registered to vote in this 2024 elections, with Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Center recording the highest number of inmates. We appreciate the work done by the IEC and DCS officials who have ensured the smooth realization of this democratic right. Chair, the core business of DCS is safe custody and its rehabilitation. Through the self-sufficient and sustainable model, the department contributes towards social relief efforts. The DCS workshops have been capacitated with the latest technology to enable them to produce inmate uniforms, staff uniforms, and shoes in large quantities. Offenders are capacitated to produce their own food and to form farms and bakeries. I make an example in the Western Cape, Helderstrom Correctional Services, Drakensberg, Voorberg, Brandflay, are currently supplying the whole prisons in the Western Cape with food, meat, eggs, fruit, veg. That is done by inmates, supervised indeed by correctional officers, including food that they cook, that they have their meals, are done by inmates themselves, indeed supervised by inmates, by officers. The ANC remains. And that, comrades, indeed, is a saving to our fiscus. The ANC remains an advocate of self-sufficient and skills development. Through skills development, meaningful contribution into our economy is possible. Rehabilitating offenders and equip them with the necessary skill after incarceration will contribute to a safer South Africa and reduce recidivism. Offender rehabilitation and reintegration are a vital component of a comprehensive and a holistic crime-fighting strategy. It was reported that the matric rate of inmates at correctional facilities reached 93.2%, with a total of 137 out of the 147 full-time candidates, the passing rate of 2023 national certificate exams. The part-time candidates achieve a pass rate of 84%, and this should be commendable. Offenders are taught many things such as building, painting. I can confirm where I come from, a man or an officer called Van Gienel that was busy with building and teaching inmates how to build, have indeed started his own company and have absorbed some of those former inmates. They are working with him, not only building RDP houses, but they are part of developments, building estates in surroundings of George and of the Southern Cape. I can also confirm that a young boy that went to Drakenstein Correctional Services with no matric in 2008 left that institution with a matric and went to Pentec, or today we call it, I don't know what they call it, but went to Pentec, and as we speak, CPUT, today as we speak, he is a doctoral candidate, an intern at the City of Cape Town, which is an indication that we are serious by developing those that found themselves at the wrong. Chair, one of the major challenges facing the DCS is indeed overcrowding. Overcrowding that leads to gang activities, a decrease in correctional service, official supervision, and a control of lower standards of living for all inmates, and a disciplinary violation among offenders. In addition to overcrowding, gangsterism, and shortage of specialist personnel and inadequate rehabilitation equipment, such as library services, are an impediment to effective rehabilitation. The third quarter of crime statistics of 2023-2024 financial year were released by the Minister.
Your time has expired, unfortunately. Thank you very much. Members are reminded. My bad. I'll be calling the Minister now. The Minister, Honourable Minister of Correctional Services. Thank you very much.
Baie dankie, huisvoorsitter. Allow me to congratulate all those members with their maiden speeches today. Now at least you can say that you've delivered your speech in Parliament. So congratulations on that. And I also want to thank the other members who participated in this debate. Make sure, or be sure, that I can read, but I can also write. And I made notes of each and every member who contributed in this debate. And it's true. I want to say that we are on the same page when we have to resolve problems and the crises in correctional services. And different members have mentioned all those crises. If I refer to the Honourable Ramalobeng from the ANC, I take note of the lack of housing for our members and certain members. We have to address that. If I look at what the Honourable Engelbrecht from the DA, the overcrowding, several members have mentioned our problem with overcrowding. And yes, part of that is also our remand detainees. We talk about 60,000 of them. And the Honourable Swart has very nicely put it, to solve that problem, we will have to work together in the cluster. It is part of the criminal justice system. It's not only correctional services who can solve the problem. And we will take hands on that matter to see how we can resolve that situation where we then will have less overcrowding in our facilities. The Honourable Mtwangu from the IFP, running businesses from inside in the outside. That is true. And that is part of the corruption I've referred to, that we have to solve that as well. Die achtbare denner van die Vryheidsfront Plus, dit is so, die paroolstelsel is 'n hoë prioriteit. Ons moet kyk daarna, want die mense van Suid-Afrika is so geweldig onderdruk as dit kom by misdaad. En as hulle sien dat mense nie op 'n werklike meritebasis op parool kan gaan nie, dan vra hulle vra. So dit is 'n hoë prioriteit. From ActionSA, the Honourable James, you're quite right. And as it was said, you put it forward in a very passionate way. Those are real critical matters we will have to look at. We want to see, if we receive people in our facilities, when they go out of our facilities, that they can contribute to social communities and to the better of South Africa. That is where rehabilitation is part of our priorities. And these matters must be addressed. We cannot allow people to come there for minor offences and going out as hardened criminals. So we have to address that. If I look, for instance, what the Honourable Klutter has said from the ANC, it's true, the budget cuts are quite a problem, and that we will have to look at that. As far as the Honourable Sukopo is confirmed, or referred to from the ANC, mentioning small things, like uniforms and shoes. And I said it before, and I said it in Afrikaans, dat is die klein jakkelsies wat die wingerde verwoes. We will attend to all these. I want to thank you for your contributions. We work together to solve the problems. And we can only solve it if we as ministry take hands with the department and with you as members of parliament. Remember, I'm also a member of parliament. We want to be accountable. Africa. Lastly, I want to refer to the Honourable Dihale. I've listened very carefully when she read her speech, and I want to congratulate her. At least now I know that there is one member in the EFF that can read. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Thank you very much. Okay, order. Thank you. Members are reminded.
Speaker, Chairperson.
Yes, is this a point of order?
Yeah, it's a point of order.
Okay, please raise the point of order.
It's actually a very racist assumption that members of the EFF, except the one that read, cannot read. We must take exception to that. It's racist, and you have started already being racist. You are racist. That's a racist statement. It's an anti-black statement. Why do you say we
Honourable
can't
member,
read? Who are you?
Honourable member, can I just
We can read, we can
could I have
even
order,
read
please?
that you are racist.
Could I have order now? Thank you very
Must
much.
withdraw that.
Yeah. Could I just rule on this matter? It's not parliamentary to specifically speak to a specific member. You may not cast aspersions at a specific person, but you may also not use unparliamentary language. So I'm going to rule on this. There's a precedent in terms of I'm not going to ask the minister to withdraw anything because I don't think I can rule on whether the context was right or not. So I'm going to leave that as a comment and not as a point of order.
I had.
Yeah, and then we will leave it there. Is that fine?
Yes, on a point of order, Chairperson, it is unparliamentary to refer to another member as a racist. And the Honourable Ndosi will have to withdraw that.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to
Could
say
I
that.
just, I actually made a ruling on that. Sorry, excuse me. Order. I already made a ruling on that matter. That was also referring to the issue of the racist remark and what he said. I said there shall be no unparliamentary speaking to a person and addressing them specifically, right? So we're going to leave that there as not a point of order. We'll leave it there, and we will close the meeting on that note. We're going to make the announcement. Members are reminded that there are 3 debates are scheduled simultaneously for 4:15 today. The Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment Budget Vote debate will be held in the Good Hope Chamber, while the National Treasury, State Security Budget Vote debate will take place in the Committee Room M446. Additionally, the Defence and Military Veterans Budget Vote debate will take place in the Committee Room S12A. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise.